a very uncomfortable time in the Commons.
So early next week, ministers are likely to claim that this measure will be kept in reserve, a kind of ultimate weapon to be used if necessary against the clubs of the Football League. But insiders at Whitehall admit that despite Mrs Thatcher's outspoken support for this measure, it has in effect been dropped. Peter Allen, News at 10, Westminster.
It was a bill that united football. Identity cards were universally condemned as unnecessary and unworkable. Small clubs said they'd go out of business. At the other end of the league, the problem was making the cards work with crowds of 50,000, most of them arriving just before kick-off.
It may well be the way forward, but it may well prove to be unworkable.
But if the police themselves weren't sure about the scheme, there was also serious doubt about the hardware needed to check card-carrying supporters. It worked all right in tests, but any breakdown in the system on match day would have meant crowd build-ups which could have caused chaos.
What Hillsborough did bring home to everybody was something that I think all of us in football realised right at the very start, that actually causing delays at turnstiles is potentially an extremely dangerous situation.
And from the Supporters Association, a plea for a new approach.
I think the best way is to make the fans feel part of football, give them decent facilities, and perhaps introduce this voluntary scheme that gives them a say in the way that football is run. If the fans feel that their views are taken seriously, if they are a part of the game, then they won't rebel against the system.
At Tottenham Hotspur's ground tonight, more than 30,000 were gathering to watch the cup tie with Nottingham Forest. There was no sign of trouble, only a sense of relief that no one will need an identity card to get into the ground next season.
I've been in crowds before when you're about 5 minutes for a crowd, for a game, everybody's pushing to get in and that. Yeah, it's a good idea to throw it out.
It would create mayhem. There's no two ways about it. And if the government have seen sense at long last, then we can all be pleased.
Peter Staunton, ITN Sport, White Hart Lane.
A secret report on the policing of a demonstration at the Wapping headquarters of News International 3 years ago is believed to be highly critical of the Metropolitan Police. It's thought to claim some officers were indiscriminate in their use of truncheons, their actions were violent, and they appeared to lack self-control. A senior officer is investigating how details of the report were leaked.
The leaked report attacks most aspects of the Scotland Yard operation, from the officers on the ground to the men in command. In criticising the command structure, it's understood the report says that some officers lacked adequate supervision, that other officers took undisciplined and uncontrolled actions involving the indiscriminate use of truncheons. It's thought the report also accuses the Metropolitan Police of using horses without warning demonstrators, resulting in large sections of the crowd, which had previously been passive, becoming seriously aggravated. The investigation was carried out by Northamptonshire Police and supervised by the Independent Police Complaints Authority, who tonight refused to comment on the report. The reaction from Scotland Yard has been one of no public comment, but sources say senior commanders are shocked and saddened by the leaks. One source tonight said the report also praised the work of the majority of officers who policed Wapping, a situation, he said, which was always difficult, challenging and hostile. One reason for the Yard's anger is that 18 officers are due to appear in court at Bow Street tomorrow on charges arising out of the protests. Colin Baker, News at 10 in London.
The United States has refused to back down on its insistence that there must be a one-year amnesty on the forced repatriation of Vietnamese boat people from Hong Kong. It was hoped Britain and America would agree on a compromise amnesty of 6 months, provided new arrivals were sent straight back to Vietnam.
Until late afternoon, the signals from the conference were yes, consensus is close. It was simply a matter of agreeing a date for mandatory repatriation to begin. The Americans appear to have climbed down from their original demands that there should be a 1 year's moratorium on sending people home.
The main sticking point is the period of the moratorium and the measures to be taken in case there is an emergency situation within the area.
It was all happening in the American corner, they insisting on more time, more screening. The head of the British delegation, Robin McLaren, in the centre, arguing that that would only make things worse, that further delay would only encourage more people to try to get